To preface my experience, I'm a 29-year-old gay man who is disabled. I was born with a neuromuscular disease called spinal muscular atrophy, which weakens my muscles. I'm fully dependent on nurses because I use a wheelchair and a ventilator for breathing support. Lately, I've been struggling with my spirituality. For the past couple of months, I've been doing gateway tape meditations and trying to connect with a positive energy non-human intelligence, NHI, of my vibration or higher. After hearing about the lady, Hathor, Sophia, and various encounters surrounding her, I've been trying to connect with her. Up until this morning, I hadn't had any luck. When meditating, I always state that I want to connect only with entities of love, compassion, and empathy, those who are my vibration or higher. This morning, something happened right as I closed my eyes to go back to sleep around 10 a.m. I had just finished my breathing treatments and was about to sleep again. I had a bad headache. Only about 5 seconds passed, not nearly enough time to actually fall asleep, when I heard an electric whooshing sound coming from behind me, outside my window. I felt a wave or pulse of electricity flow over me. It wasn't painful, but I realized I couldn't move. Keeping my eyes closed, I saw static white orbs flying around within my vision. Trying not to panic, I asked for protection and comfort from the divine feminine. I went through several names I've heard associated with her: Hathor, Sophia, Wisdom, etc. My mind felt clear, and I knew I wasn't dreaming. I stated that I did not want this presence, and that it was going against my personal free will. Then, I heard, telepathically, as if spoken directly into my ear, "You called for me. Do not be afraid." The being seemed surprised that I had asked for protection from the divine feminine. It said, "I will not harm you." I attempted to use my call light to alert my nurse, but I remained immobile. I tried to call out, and my nurse entered the room, wearing a red hoodie, though I hadn't seen him yet that day, and uncovered my head. I sleep with my head covered. He remarked that the room smelled strange and said something like, "What the hell is that?" Then he doubled over in pain. I screamed, "Please don't hurt him." A surge of electricity coursed through me and my head was covered again. I realized an illusion or dream had been placed over me and felt a sense of relief, but I still couldn't move. This sequence repeated 2 more times, with slight variations. The details became hazy and increasingly surreal. After the 3rd time, I realized I might be in the astral realm. I acknowledged what was happening and said aloud that these experiences were not real. Suddenly, everything became clear and tangible again. I asked what was going on. A voice responded, distinctly and audibly, "Testing you." I said, "If you're not going to harm me, can I please see you?" "You may not like what you see," the entity replied. "I'm much more compassionate and understanding than you might realize. I don't judge based on appearance. Okay, but I do not wish to frighten or disturb you. Are you like a gray, an insectoid, or a freaky reptilian?" I definitely didn't mean to say freaky. The entity chuckled dryly. "Why does that matter to you?" "It doesn't. I just want to prepare myself." The entity then uncovered my head and came into view. It mostly resembled a small, greenish-gray alien with big black eyes and a large head, but I distinctly remember it had an armadillo-like shell or outer layer. Things started to blur again. Another pulse of electricity flowed through me, and my head was covered once more. When things became clear again, I realized time had been displaced. I asked what had happened. "You were not ready," it said. Oddly, I hadn't felt scared or threatened. I had remained relatively calm. Now, the entity uncovered my head again, but this time she appeared as a tall, Nordic-looking woman with brown hair and ornate silver jewelry. Her face was blurry or obscured, like a smudge. I asked why her appearance had changed, but she didn't answer directly. Instead, she asked why I had been trying to contact different NHIs and warned me to be careful. We discussed my intentions. I explained that I feel lost in life, like I don't belong here. I said I wanted help finding my purpose and hoped the universe could answer my questions about life and the cosmos. While we talked, she examined my body, my belly, chest, and arms. She told me I was overweight for my species. She wasn't judgmental, just stating a fact. I explained that because of my disability, I have almost no mobility and very few joys in life aside from food. She was empathetic and even apologized. I asked if their technology or medicine could fix me if I could walk. She said yes, but that she wasn't allowed to change DNA and bodies so drastically. I made a statement along the lines of, "You could take me with you. I could see and understand the universe. Maybe I could walk and feel happy in this life." I don't remember the exact words, but that was the meaning. She was examining the lower half of my body. I was naked as I sleep that way, and she said, "Someday." Then she paused, looked at me with sadness, and asked, "Would you feel regret or sadness for leaving your loved ones behind?" I replied, "I'm so unhappy here. My best friend lives across the country, and I can't live there. My parents don't fully understand me, and I'm surrounded by nurses who are paid to be with me. The only one I would truly miss is my dog Ava. She needs me." She continued to ask me questions about myself and my past. The entity was very empathetic and seemed genuinely interested in me. She was gentle, and I completely forgot that I couldn't move. Everything was communicated through telepathy. I felt at peace, like I could be completely honest with her. There was no judgment. Finally, after she had finished examining both my body and what felt like my soul, she told me she was leaving. I asked how I'd know if this was real. She replied, "You just will." I asked if we'd meet again. She said yes. She told me she would count down from 3 and that I'd wake up. After reaching 0, she said goodbye. A wave of euphoria washed over me, and I was instantly awake and able to move. I called in my nurse and realized he was wearing a red sweatshirt, just like in the astral experience. My headache was also completely gone. I had only been down for 30 minutes. I'm still not sure if I dreamed all of this or if it actually happened. The dreamier parts felt like a test to see how I would react in different situations. But everything that happened once I was lucid felt incredibly real and deeply honest. I was 8 years old when we first moved into the house on the edge of the forest. My parents had their doubts about buying a house with a backyard bordered by forest. They had concerns about wild animals getting into our bins or hurting our dogs, and were worried one of us might go too far into the trees and get lost. But it was cheap. My dad liked the seclusion. My mom loved the house itself, and my siblings and I were excited about playing in the backyard and exploring the forest. Our first sign that something wasn't right was that our dogs were absolutely terrified of the forest. They never went into the forest for any reason. If a toy they'd been playing with found its way past the tree line, they would refuse to retrieve it. And when one of us went in, they would pace anxiously until we returned. On occasion, we'd notice the dogs staring at a spot in the forest in obvious distress, sometimes growling or barking, but we could never see anything there. My brother once carried one of the dogs into the trees to show her there was nothing scary about it, but she wriggled out of his grip and sprinted into the house in a panic. If we were in the backyard when it was getting dark, we sometimes heard noises like someone was walking through the forest, sticks crunching underfoot, branches being pushed aside. If we called out, there was no response, but if we shined a flashlight around, we would occasionally catch a glimpse for just a split second of something that we could swear looked like a person walking around in the dark. My parents quickly banned us from entering the forest at all after dark, and even during the day we weren't allowed to go out of sight of the house. My sister's bedroom window looked out at the backyard and the forest beyond, and she remembers looking out her window one night and seeing a shadowy figure standing right at the edge of the backyard. She says there was something wrong with it, like it wasn't quite standing on the ground, and it was a little too tall to be a person, and it was sort of distorted, and she was convinced it was staring at her. She called for our dad, saying there was a man in the yard staring through her window, and when he ran outside to chase off whoever it was, she continued to watch the figure. It didn't move away, but when the light from our dad's flashlight passed over it, it suddenly just wasn't there anymore. We regularly heard knocking at the back door at night, with no one there. Our parents thought it was teenagers playing pranks, and stopped bothering even opening the door until one rainy night when the knocking was persistent and agitated. My mom pointed out there might be someone needing shelter from the heavy rain outside, but when she opened the door, not only was there no one there, but there were no wet footprints on the porch. The knocking continued the whole time we lived there. It would happen several times in the span of a few weeks, then stop for months, then start up again. My parents eventually installed a security camera, and there was never anyone at the door. The camera wasn't all useless though. About 3 years into living there, my brother started having night terrors and sleepwalking. When he went sleepwalking, he would always go out the back door and start walking towards the forest. My mum, being a light sleeper, would hear the door open and would run out to get him before he made it into the forest. After the third or fourth time it happened, my brother asked to see the camera footage because he wanted to see how he looked when sleepwalking, I guess thinking it'd look funny. The footage showed him walking out onto the porch, then pausing as if listening to something and shaking his head, then reluctantly walking forward as if being pulled or forcefully guided by something. One evening, my dad was in the backyard and he heard my sister calling him from the forest, seemingly in distress. Thinking she'd gone exploring in the forest and fallen over and hurt herself, he ran in and started calling to her, but quickly realized it was too dark to see her, and he couldn't pinpoint where her voice was coming from. He told her to wait where she was while he grabbed a flashlight. When he ran back into the house for the flashlight, he saw my sister inside, safe and completely unconcerned. At the time, my dad hadn't told us about hearing my sister's voice in the forest, so when I heard my mum's voice coming from the forest months later while I was outside with the dogs one evening, I didn't question it, despite the fact I'd seen my mum inside recently and hadn't noticed her walk past me. My mum was calling to me, saying she'd gotten her sweater caught in some branches and needed me to come in and help her. As I walked in, the dogs started barking, alerting my dad, who saw me through the window wandering into the forest. He came outside and called to me, and I said I was just helping Mum. He yelled back that Mum was inside, and I needed to run back to the house as fast as I could, which I did. After this, my parents had a fence built around the backyard and started looking for a new place. In the time between the fence being built and us moving out, it got way worse. We'd hear knocking at the door more regularly, as well as tapping on the windows, as if someone was walking the perimeter of the house and trying every window. We would often hear scratching and scraping sounds on the fence and voices beyond it. My brother's night terrors got more frequent, and one night, my mum didn't hear the door open when he went sleepwalking, and he woke up standing at the fence, staring into the forest, with the dogs barking at him. The last morning we spent there, less than 4 years after we moved in, we woke up to find the back door fully open, and the security camera footage showed it slowly swing open on its own. Since moving out, my brother's sleepwalking has stopped, though he still gets night terrors, and he suffers from pretty severe anxiety. A few nights ago, he called me out of the blue, and after a bit of small talk, he asked me if I think the door being opened that final night means whatever was out there finally got in. He was trying to make light of it, saying he was getting into the spirit of Halloween, joking about how maybe we should all get exorcised, just in case something latched onto us all those years ago. But I think he's deeply bothered by everything that happened. I know I still am a little. I still get nervous around dark wooded areas. I don't know what I think was out there in the forest behind our house at night, but I get the feeling that, given the chance, it would have swallowed us whole. When I was 16, my sister and I were walking home for lunch a half block from the high school. A girl in my younger sister's class was driving someone's car in the parking lot doing donuts. It appeared the girl in the front passenger seat was scared and wanted out. The door opened and she was pulled under the car. The driver must have thought she was still on top of her and ended up backing over her for a second time. I knew she was dead. Then I saw what looked like refractive light combined with mist or fog, that is the best I can use words we have to describe it, that ascended up just above the car, and then it was gone. My sister ran down to call 911. I was dry heaving in the ditch. I'm extremely sensitive to other people's pain, so witnessing a person run over twice and be gone was overwhelming. I wondered about what I saw a few times that summer. Never told anyone. Didn't think I'd be believed. It was a long faded memory by the time I was in my late 20s. My BFF was driving my car to drop me at SeaTac for a business trip on the old Highway 99 viaduct. We came up on an accident that had just occurred. Motorcycle versus SUV. The SUV was on its side, wheels facing the bay, and a woman was having a panic attack. Another woman was kneeling by the motorcyclist, reaching for a pulse. I saw the same refracted light and foggy but transparent particles move up and away from him, then disappear just as the woman sunk her head down. I interpreted as no pulse. What could it possibly be but a soul, or a quantum group of particles from the elements of a supernova that gave us life, returning to the fold? This isn't the only experience I've had that didn't have an explanation based on our current understanding of quantum physics, chemistry, biology, or any of the sciences, but it's one I have witnessed twice under similar circumstances, so it would be difficult to explain it away as a reflection of some light bouncing off metal or other anomalies. I do not know if this story is allowed because it is not a ghostly experience or about a haunted house, but I have absolutely no explanation for the event. Before I tell you my story, I'm going to give you some context about my drive home from work, the state I live in, and so on. This happened about 10 minutes after I left work on July 4th, 2020. I live in Northeast Ohio, and I got a new job about 2 months ago as a process technician at a dairy plant. It pays very good money, considering it is a 34 or 35 mile drive one way. After about 20 or 25 miles, I drive through a wooded area. That is not uncommon for me, as forests are common in northeast Ohio, and I pretty much lived in the one behind my grandmother's house while growing up. I work from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m., and the drive home is rough, whether it is because I am tired, hungry, or because of the fog that forms almost every night. I take the same route every day and night. I had just left the residential area near my workplace and was entering the forested stretch. As I said, there is almost always fog at night, so I am constantly on high alert for deer, raccoons, and other critters. Everything about the drive was just like every other night. I had a podcast playing, I was focused on the road, thinking about whether I should get a sausage McMuffin or a McGriddle from McDonald's, and occasionally glancing off to the side of the road to check for any eyes reflecting in my headlights. Then, all of a sudden, I saw some reflective eyes. A coyote walked out of the woods. In my hometown, coyotes are not too rare. I have seen them near my high school, but I had never seen one outside of my hometown before, so it caught me off guard. I started to slow down as it crossed the road, until it turned toward my car and sat down in the middle of the road. It sat about 10 feet in front of my vehicle. I had not seen any other cars since leaving the residential area, so I considered going around it, but something about the situation felt too strange to just ignore. I expected it to get up and walk away at any moment. This is when I started to feel genuinely scared. I honked my horn, and after about 2 or 3 seconds, it smiled at me. I had my high beams on, so I could see it perfectly. This coyote had human-shaped teeth. My heart dropped, and every hair on my body stood on end, just like they are now as I am recalling this incident. It lasted for about 1 second before it got up and ran back into the wood. I sat there in fear for about 5 seconds, then slammed my foot on the pedal and took off. I did not stop to get food because I had, and still have, no appetite. I spent the rest of the ride home thinking about what I had seen. At one point, I doubted myself, but like I said, with my high beams on and the coyote being so close to my car, I saw it as clearly as I have ever seen anything in my life. That coyote had human teeth, and there is no doubt about it. I am very into the paranormal, and that includes cryptids. Is it possible I encountered a skinwalker or some kind of genetically mutated coyote? I am Native American, if that makes a difference. It feels so strange typing this out, but I would really like someone who knows more about these things to help me understand what I saw. I know one thing for sure. I am finding a new way to work. So, my dad died almost 7 years ago, when I was 15, and this happened already 3 years later. I was close to graduation, and especially my final exam in physics gave me a hard time, because I really couldn't get to grips with relativity and that shenanigans. Anyway, one morning, I was really tired, haven't slept well, or at all I should say, and I was about to fall asleep in the last row in my classroom, when, just as I was beginning to close my eyes, I heard my dad's voice, clear as day, say, "Hey blank, wake up and listen." It was so clearly his voice, the tone, the melody. When he was calling my name in a happy manner, he was almost kind of singing. It was him. I was baffled for a moment, but when I rebooted after that moment of shock, it was exactly the moment when our teacher dropped a very important hint about what the final exam's theme would be. I would have totally slept through that, hadn't my dad woken me up. What's important about this is that with the teacher's hint, I realized that I was learning the wrong stuff and would totally have failed the final. Bonus. Less paranormal, but a beautiful end to the story. That same night I had a dream, and my dad sat on our porch, chatting, laughing, and, which I remember very distinctly, we were drinking his favorite beer together. So when I was drinking the last drops, the sun was setting. I looked to the chair next to me, and my dad was gone. I just once again heard him say, "Hey, wake up." And that's the exact moment when my alarm clock began ringing. Thank you to everyone who read this completely. It's a story I kept for myself for 4 years.